Oyo, God nation. Oyo, God nation. I'm blessed to be here. Thank you. Let me bow the knees as please the grace in this house. Thank you. In our practice, that's what we are actually cultured to do. We can take our seats. There are two laws or principles which I would like to observe before I begin my presentation. These are laws or principles as taught by our Father. I want to offer my gratitude. Number one, I also want to honor our Father for preparing this platform for all of us. If you're going to see anything good in my life or what I'm going to do today, these are simply footprints of the grace in this house. Thank you. Secondly, I would like to honor and acknowledge and appreciate Pastor, Mr. and Mrs. Pastor Simba Koramba. Thank you, sir and ma'am, for such great professionalism. I have never been treated with such an honor. Maybe I associate myself with the sentiments of my sister, which just came before me and laid a basis and made everything easier for me. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm also glad to be part of this great, august event. You see, I was thinking, from what place can I present my subject to today? And I had an experience yesterday evening while driving my son. By the way, I also want to acknowledge my family, my dear family with me, for their support, and also the legal team for their support and also their contribution. Thank you guys in absentia for your good wishes and your support. We are in this together, and I'm not afraid as I stand before this holy crowd. My son told me, Daddy, tomorrow, please don't go and present. Then I just, what is this young man saying? Do you know your audience? They are youth. Okay, I was listening, and he said to me, you should talk to them the way you talk to us. Then I was just reflecting upon that. So today, brothers and sisters, my daughters and sons, because my son is 17 years and I see a lot of group of people that are almost the same age of my son. So today, I'm going to talk to you. I'm not going to make any presentation. I'm going to talk to you as your brother, as your father, but most importantly, as one of you. I am the son of your father as well. We're in this together. And obviously, I'm going to offer my legal expertise from what the grace has been able to do in my life, also through the hands of our Father. Now, how many of us in this audience have ever heard about the saying that ignorance of the law is not a defense? Let's see by the raise of your hand. I have seen one lawyer here when they speak. I know them. There was one sister, I know there's a lawyer here. Ignorance of the law is not defense. Thank you. How many of us also have heard or are aware of the provision in our law that one is presumed innocent until proven guilty? How many of us have known about that? I was laughing as my sister was taking away there. You know, I'll compliment your presentation, but I specialize most in criminal law. Those abusers and those perpetrators, while it's called them abusers, they are clients. They are our clients. Hello? They are our clients. So, ignorance of the law is no defense. What that simply means, the fact that you are ignorant of the provisions or the contents of the law does not excuse you from liability at law. You are not aware of what the law says. That's not a defense or that's not an excuse at law. We are here today. Thank you, Pastor, and your team for coining this very important topic about Ignite. The context, obviously, of that topic is the theme which has been given as a nation, a God nation, by our Father, the year of the arm of light. Knowledge symbolizes light. We are here today to learn vital information. Speaking for myself today, I'm presenting issues, not mysteries, concerning the law of the land. The presenter who came before me, bless her, I really appreciate the work she has done. She has made my job very easier. She has brought into your awareness or into your consciousness acts of abuse. Acts of abuse. We now know what constitutes abuse, and we all acknowledge that it is indeed an evil. So I want you to invite you to join me in a war, which you are already part of. Does anyone like abuse in this place? Show me by your raise. Is that a end? Amen? We agree that we don't like abuse. But we need to be armed with the knowledge of the law. I will present to you or postulate what I would like to call two main faces of the law today as I present. And my intention is that by the end of this presentation, you will be armed, not with machetes, guns, or everything, but with elementary knowledge to protect yourself against abuse, number one, and also to shun abuse. And I'm quite aware, I'm speaking again, I want to categorize two main people in this audience. I will speak to the victim, and I also speak to the offender. We're actually doing all the noise, abuse, doing what? But where are these abusers? They are amongst us. Tell your neighbor, they are amongst us. That's the scary part of things. Where are they? Okay, I'll continue from there. I was again laughing about my sister, the sentiments she held where she was answering questions at the very tail end of her presentation. She bemoaned the lack of openness in men, lack of protective provision against the boy, child, and whatever. This is my observation. You know, when I was reviewing some literature in preparation of this presentation, I came upon the Constitution of the land. I just canvassed through the Bill of Rights. I went through the women's rights provided, Section 81, children's rights, people with disabilities, whatever. And to my utter shock, there's nothing about rights of men. Well, that's an issue we have really to take over. I mean, I didn't see that. So, that could be the reason. There seems to be a de facto acknowledgement at law that men are not vulnerable, not that they don't have rights, but I said there's no provision. I didn't see it in the law. Maybe that's the starting point. We can wish them well, we can have compassion and whatever, but I think what have aroused my consciousness or my mind, what was exercised my mind, well, you guys as women activists, there's Padari, I've heard about that. Maybe it's time to lobby. If before somebody lobbies for the amendment of the law, nothing happens. You know, in the presentation of our sister, she has mentioned the constitutional amendments recently as regards the consenting age or the description of what constitutes a young person, the alignment of the laws, the new Section 7, which was repealed sometime last year, and the new SI, that's 2 of 2024, which now describes or defines a young person as a person under the age of 18. and also the Marriage Act that outlaws child marriages. Anyway, you can't be married when you are below the age of 18. I have made a presentation here, which I've prepared, but forgive me, I'll deviate a little bit from my prepared presentation for the sake of relevance. Our sister has laid a basis for acts of abuse, which I would need to answer directly, not in conflict, but this time I'll compliment her. Obviously, as a defense attorney, I'm not defending anything today. I'm not putting any heads of arguments today unless I am provoked, but I'm there to compliment what our sister has already laid as a basis. She made mention of human trafficking, but some of you recall a few years back, I also appeared as a guest on Christ TV when I presented this topic about human trafficking. I would like to say the law that governs or that protects victims or people against human trafficking is the Trafficking in Persons Act. Apparently, there is a law. Somebody say, well, after all these evils of human trafficking, is there a law? Apparently, there is the Trafficking in Persons Act, which is in place. And I made a presentation there. I'll refer that for those who have seen it. Now, I said I was going to present to you what I would like to term two main phases of the law. Number one, there's what I would like to call the protective phase or the compassionate phase. In this regard, I'm looking at the victim. Is there hope for the victim? The law looks kindly at the victim. What are the protective provisions in the law to protect or to give relief to the victims of abuse? It doesn't end there. There is the second phase of the law. That is the frowning or the punitive phase of the law. How does the law deal with the abuser or the would-be abuser? But of course, this is a very sensitive subject. Some of us are reeling under abuse, and the mere fact that there is this presentation, it gives them traumatic remembrance of experiences. I will not want to take that away. The issue of abuse leaves stressful and traumatic experiences. I will share with you cases as I go on, which I have personally handled, and some of those, they were not mine. But there were issues where victims were left not happy, not because the abuses did not happen, but some other factors which we will really look at. Now, I would like to start off by looking at the Domestic Violence Act. Our sister has done a good job in terms of outlining acts of abuse. Now, we have what we call the Domestic Violence Act, which is a law that has been enshrined by the Parliament, Section 5:16. Section 3 of the Domestic Violence Act, it gives an all-encompassing description of acts of domestic violence. So that's the Domestic Violence Act, and these are the provisions of Section 3, which gives an outline or a description, enumerate the acts of domestic violence. I would want to stay there for a long time because our sisters have already laid the base for that. I'm just only pointing that that's found in Section 3 of the Domestic Violence Act. You move to Section 4 of the Domestic Violence Act, it criminalizes acts of domestic violence, and apparently it provides for the prosecution of offenders of domestic violence, and you can actually go to jail. But might I also underline there that not all acts of domestic violence are of a criminal nature or are criminalized. There is actually an exception in section number 4 where there is emotional abuse, economic abuse. Now, does the fact that those accepted acts of domestic violence from the criminal sanctions mean that there's no remedy. No. In as much as they are not criminal offenses, apparently they actually remedied at law. One can actually seek a protection order from those acts of domestic violence. Section 7 provides for the application of a protection order where acts of domestic violence are being committed. And I would like also to say, according to Section 9, you can apply for a protection order on an interim basis. This is a situation where you go to court on an urgent basis. This case cannot wait. The abuse is going on to the extent that if there's any delay, somebody might get killed or there are going to be dire consequences. You are given an interim protection order where there is a return date, where the abuser, in this instance called the respondent, is called upon to come to court, where an inquiry will be carried out in terms of Section 10. And after an inquiry, and when the court is satisfied that there is indeed an abuse going on, the court gives a final protection order. And this protection order has got a lifespan of 5 years after its issuance. And also, might I say, the breach or violation of an interim protection order or the protection order itself is a criminal offense which can lead somebody to be prosecuted and sent to jail. Can we move to Section 11? Contents of protection order. A protection order may, where appropriate, prohibit the respondent from committing, listing, whatever. I want you to look there. Those are solutions or what you can get from a protection order in terms of the terms, in terms of the protective provisions of a protection order. There is that list which is available for you. Okay, I've given what I've called case studies there. These are cases which actually happened. There is the aspect of economic abuse. My sister has mentioned the issue of maybe neglect of support. You've got situations where spouses neglect giving each other support. And as you have seen in our description of the domestic violence in terms of Section 3, there is what we call economic abuse, where somebody is deprived access to the means of production or the means of survival. If you are a spouse being deprived access to the means of survival, you can actually go to court and get a protection order. This case I've personally handled. I'm sure I didn't give the names of my clients. It's X, lest I be sued. It's X and Y. So this is a case study. If there's something like that happening to you, you can actually approach the domestic violence court and get a protection order. And also this provision of the law, which is quite really progressive. There's instances where this is prone to abuse by estranged spouses. Somebody can just decide to be malicious, but the court will carry out a thorough inquiry, and if there is no cause to give that order, it will dismiss that. I actually came across that case when I was just reviewing some literature when I was coming here. I'm sure the facts of that case is very clear. So not every complaint, not only in domestic violence cases, is going to be granted by the court. It's not for the taking. So it is the duty of the complainant or the offended party or the victim to lay before the court cogent reasons, and also it's your duty to provide the necessary evidence. As the old legal adage goes, he who alleges should prove. You should prove your case. So if there's any medical affidavit that need to be proven, but the bottom line is you have to prove your case on a balance of probability. That's the threshold of proof. If it's 51%, that's really okay, but you have to really convince the court so that it can tilt the judgment in your favor. So it is the duty of the complainant to gather evidence. When an abuse is going on, it is a duty to keep evidence so that you'll be able to present it before the court. Okay, that also remind me, I think, allow me to pass through that one. The allegation of corruption that has been really alleged that in some instances, victims are left with their eggs on the faces, and sometimes we are quick to jump and allege corruption. Personally, I have had experiences where there could be a good case, but as a defense attorney, you always take advantage of your enemy. Now, when we are doing criminal prosecutions, we are fighting against the state, but this time I am against domestic violence. So the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes poor investigations and poor preparation of complainants will lead cases to be lost. Did you hear that? So what is the duty of the complainant? Sometimes it's not their fault. I'm sure there are police officers here, my friends. I think we talk about it sometimes where they do a short jobs in terms of their investigations. I tell you, I've seen in my experience that there are very good police officers. You know, when so-and-so is investigating this case, there's not going to be any loopholes. Then you know so-and-so is preparing this case, it's going to be a short job. So we have situations where cases are poorly investigated and witnesses are poorly prepared and cases are lost due to poor police work. I've heard about a case which I witnessed personally. There was a woman who was 32-year-old. She was a teacher. She moved to a new place. This is a new area as a teacher. On the first night of her arrival, she was violated, she was raped by a 20-year-old man. You know what happened there? Then, on the morrow, the first person she reported to, he told him, I know this description, I know this guy, it could be X. Because she has looked at her assailant, he was a tall, dark man. So they went to the police and made that report. And police, after hearing that description and the details, zealously, they went to the accused person's place of residence, armed with guns, dogs, and they raided his place. They tried to go through the window. They apprehended him and they collected him and they went with him to the complainant's place and say, is this the guy who violated you? And the woman said, yes. And this guy, because he had done it, he said, there's no way here. I did it. But he came up with some films defense. We were in love. But how can you be loved by a stranger? She is just a few hours in your area. That's what he told the police. But when the matter went to court, he hired a lawyer. And the lawyer actually applied the law as it is. You can't blame him. There are procedures expected. What did the police do to you? They did this to you. Okay, fine. But there is a defense here. This is a case of mistaken identity. It was in the night, and also what the police did. Was there an identification parade done? Nothing. So the guy changed his defense at court. I was not the one. I did not do it. The matter went to trial. And the guy was discharged. At the end of the state case, himself, he was also shocked. Is it over? Because the police had messed their job. Because I want to illustrate to you how some cases as complainants are lost. Then to the victim said, but I was raped. In that situation, she was alleging corruption, but the law is the law. There was supposed to be a formal identification parade, and also how the police have handled that case left a lot to be desired, and there was no justice for the complainant. There is the criminal procedure, the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act, Chapter 9:23, which prescribes certain criminal offenses for certain acts of abuse. You look at your section 89 of the code, it criminalizes assault, that physical assault, obviously not in a domestic setup. And there are actually criminal sanctions for that. If you are a victim of assault, you can report to the police and the offender can be prosecuted and given the appropriate sentence that meet the justice of that case. And also, if you are injured, you've got your medical reports and whatever, you can actually take the matter from the civil conviction. If you are injured, you've got your medical affidavits and whatever, and claim actually damages for injury. I'm here to talk about the remedies for abuse. I will not lose the track. I'll just be on point. We also have, maybe before my time runs out, the crime of rape. The crime of rape. How many of us in this audience know about this crime of rape? How many of us in this audience know about this crime of rape? We don't know about this crime. Do you want me to give you a definition of rape? Okay. It's criminalized under Section 65 of the Criminal Law Codification Reform Act if a male person knowingly has sexual intercourse or anal sexual intercourse with a female person, and at the time of the intercourse, the female person has not consented to it, or he knows that she has not consented to it, or realizes that there is a real risk or a possibility that she may not have consented to it, he shall be guilty of rape and liable to imprisonment for life or any shorter period. I would like to spend a bit more time on the aspect of rape, and I was just thinking, there is a recent case, 2024 case, a review judgment concerning the sentencing, the new sentencing provisions as enshrined in Amendment number 10 of 23 of the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act as regards the issue of sentencing, which makes it, which gives a mandatory sentence of 15 years. But putting youth into perspective, I saw something that really scared me. From the review judgment, something really heavily weighed upon my heart. I'm a father of 3 boys. And you know the import of that law, that review judgment. Even if one is a child and you are convicted of rape, you go to jail as the law stands right now. You can't have your sentence suspended. But that piece of legislation, as we unpack it, it would appear it's retrospective to the gains or the development that have been actually made in terms of sentencing juvenile sexual offenders. There is a popular case. My late colleagues here, I have only seen one. When we know each other, I have seen one here. I don't know if there are so many. The case of State versus Juvenile, Tendai Juvenile, those are the names there, where the sentiments of the court that when it comes to sentencing juvenile offenders, especially sexual offenders, they are not supposed to be sent to jail. They are actually advocating for a more reformative approach. Because if you send these young guys to jail, thanks to my sister, that's why especially when one offends sexually, they are likely going to repeat it. Which means if you harden him, women in future in society, they are not going to be safe. So obviously the issue of caning, corporal punishment was outlawed. It used to be there. I remember 2019, is it 2016, somewhere there, I personally handled a matter which was very scary and heavy. We have a 19-year-old cousin brother, or he was a brother. He raped 2 of his sisters, his young sisters. He actually violated, burgled his own sister, biological sister, and he also went for the cousin, young girl they were staying with. He used to call them in the bedroom, and they tried to resolve it as a family, and try to hide it, whatever. But somewhere, thanks to these child rights activists like the organization of our sister there, they snooped up and picked up this case, and it came from prosecution at court. I was really fortunate then. I was still young and furious, whatever, but I was doing my job. I represented the guy. I represented the guy. We only apply the law as it was. And by then, according to the provisions of the law, he got the justice he deserved. But I was looking at the victim now that we have these issues that in terms of trauma, if they healed, did they go through counseling and whatever, their own sister, and now that they are grown-up people, how they view, how they look at him and the trauma caused in the families. But this guy received 4 canes. That was the sentence. That was the law then, before the issue of corporate punishment was outlawed. So according to this provision, allow me to read the amendment, Section 5, REP, that subsection 4 of the Principal Act is amended by the repeal of the resuming words in subsection 1 and the substitution of shall be guilty of rape and liable, number 1, if the crime was committed in aggravating circumstances as described in subsection 2, that is to say, if there is a finding adverse to the accused on any one or more of those factors, to life imprisonment or any definite period of imprisonment of not less than 15 years. That was the minimum mandatory sentence which my sister tagged on in her presentation. This apparently is the legal provision. Number 2, if there are no aggravating circumstances, to a period of not less than 5 years and not more than 15 years. Now, I've lamented the dangers of this provision as per the case which I've highlighted, which is equally a new case. Young people, if they've committed rape, they're going to be sent to jail. In that review judgment, we've got a 17-year-old child who raped a 5-year-old child, and the magistrate in the court or in the court of first instance had actually suspended, had given him 5 years and suspended the whole of it. And the reviewing judges find that to be an error. Now, applying the provisions of this amendment, they said there was no basis for the magistrate to have suspended a portion of that sentence because the law does not discriminate whether it is a child offender or not. I feel this is a danger to us youth, and I believe the legal minds and my sister here, those child rights activists and those social commentators, I think they should look for an urgent attention of this law because of this law, our children are in danger, our boy children are in danger. If you commit a rape offense, it's an aggravated circumstance, the child is very young, it's close, and all other consideration, and when there is a finding, one factor aggravating the case, it's a 15-year mandatory term. Now, if it's a rape, which is simple, there are no aggravated circumstances, there is a lower mandatory sentence of 5 years. Did we get this? Are we getting this? Are we getting this? If we get this, it was something that was laying heavily on my heart, if that's head. Okay. So, we are addressing you boys, or the youth, the guy aspects. I was again shared with my sister there. I've come across while I was reviewing some literature in preparation of this important occasion where in other countries, I'm sure South Africa, but some countries in Europe, where there was the issue of chemical castration, where one who voluntarily submit himself to a plan of action, they are given pills, whatever, to lessen the testosterone level in his body so that you not feel the power to go and abuse. Then I was saying, my observation there then, so some cases of abuse or causes of abuse can be the issue of it's biological, it's sticking, I've no control over it. Some cases, okay, I'm just laying to you what I found out. So there is acknowledgement that there are some people who are abnormally gifted in terms of maybe their drive, in terms of wanting a mate. They can't just control it. They are really victims. This is a biological issue. Of course, each case can be dealt with its own circumstances. There are sections to that. Now, the postulation, the proposition of that biological castration, I'm not so sure whether that can be a law in our country here. Now, there's also the other aspect which I would like also to postulate when we're discussing. You heard the presenter who came before me that the people who live with victims and perpetrators are the greatest hindrances when it comes to enforcing or implementing laws relating to abuse, because they tend to hide their abusers, because your abuser is your husband. If he goes to jail, what will I do? Or is an uncle. We don't want to break the family ties. I've come across where there is a suggestion that can't we make it a criminal offense for those people who are aware of an abuse going on not to report a criminal offense? Do you think that would be a good idea? If you hide any criminal, if you protect any criminal, if you knew that a child has been abused, that makes it a criminal offense. Now, the provisions also of the Domestic Violence Act are also added as a rider to the answer given by my sister, because we're here to give solutions. When our brother talks about, there was a question there that people are afraid to report. If I report, I will not be supported and whatever. But the provision of the Domestic Violence Act, I think, caters for that as well. If you report somebody, you can also get an extra order of the term that he can support you. The court can order that he also supports you. It's there in the law. So don't be afraid to report somebody just because they will actually not support you. There's also the Maintenance Act. They've got a legal duty, spousal maintenance or children. So you can report and the law can order the abuser to maintain you. Section 388 of the Criminal Procedure and Evidence Act, we're talking about verbal abuse, physical abuse. When somebody is breaching the peace or disturbing you, you can actually apply. That is outside the context of domestic relationship. You can apply for a binding over order for that person to maintain the peace. Apparently, that's a solution or remedy as provided, enshrined in Section 388 of the Criminal Procedure and Evidence Act. And also for the victims of abuse, especially sexual, it can be violence, assault. Let's talk about the victim in general. There is also, in terms of the Criminal Procedure and Evidence Act, our bail system, where it gives stringent bail conditions to the abuser or the offender, not to interfere with witnesses and also not to stay at a certain place. We've done a lot of cases at the High Court involving maybe a family member abusing a child within there. These are mere allegations. Remember, at the back of your mind, I say, we are all presumed innocent and you what? Proven guilty. The accused person, but out of abundance of caution, ask, do you have an alternative address? What are we trying to do to protect the victim from further interaction, further trauma as he or she sees the abuser every day? So those are protective provisions within the law. And also, she was talking about escorts, police escorts, and also we've got in our law the concept of victim-friendly courts. I've done some of these cases in the regional cases where you don't see the child, you can't even threaten. You only see on TV, should be in another room. Basically, those are the protective provisions again in our law. So even elderly women can also be requiring victim-friendly sources depending on how broken they are. It's not only preserved for the child. Did we get that? We also have in our provision the aspect of the crime of Sodom to protect our boy child, at least there's something about the boy child. Also mentioned that in our constitution does not give rights to a man, but I'm sure here the crime of Sodom to protect the vulnerable boy child and also vulnerable men. We all know what the crime of Sodom is. We all know what it is. Okay, I don't want to go explicit or go there. There's also the aspect of aggravated indecent assault as enshrined in section 66 of the Criminal Procedure, Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act, that can be committed by both men and women. And a woman who, maybe those women who were referred by my sister, they were pimps or escorts who prize on vulnerable young boys, they will be charged for aggravated indecent assault, and according to the provision there, their sentence would just be the same as rape, showing the magnitude of that evil. There's also the aspect of indecent assault that protects. These are sexual offenses anyway, because most of abuses are found in the domain of the sex world, so to speak. The aspect of murder, ritual killings, that's our section 47 of the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act, and also the aspect of negligently killing a person through a fight. There was a story, this actually happened. There was a shop owner. He was very angry. One of his workers, or was it a customer, who have stolen something that was worth $1. He clapped that gentleman, and he fell on the floor, and he hit it dead, and he later on died at the hospital for $1. He died for $1, but that was a clear case of culpable homicide. I don't think it is reasonably foreseeable when you clip somebody that they're going to die, but that's actually protected at law, negligent killing of a human being. Most of you, the youth, you are actually found on the cyberspace. That's where you do most of your playing and activities there. Okay, the Cyber and Data Protection Act, Chapter 12:7, that's the new act. I'm sure some of you who goes to the social media, purposely, I'll borrow a word, you might have seen in the recent times some of these crimes being committed. We can't mention names here, but the aspect of transmission of data inciting violence, you said there, is a criminal offense with a fine not exceeding level 10. That's quite a high level of fine or imprisonment up to 5 years. There is also sending of threatening data message. Let's go to the next stage. Want to move? Transmission of intimate images without consent. If anyone ever read about this or heard about this in the social media, what's happening? Okay, it's actually a criminal offense. Youth should desist from that. You can actually be found guilty and go to jail. Then production, dissemination of racist and xenophobic attack. There was a student from some whatever university. How many of us read about that in the social media? These are the provisions of the law upon which those guys were arrested. The first one, which is fresh in our memory, and the second one also. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's go on top. Did we talk about the cyberbullying? Okay, thank you. The aspect of neglect and ill-treating of children, apparently the Children's Act there, Section 7, criminalizes the ill-treatment of children. In my entire practice, I only did one case on that one, but at least I did the few concerning ill-treatment of children anyway, and somebody was convicted and went to jail. And also the Maintenance Act, Section 23 of the Maintenance Act criminalizes failure to pay maintenance. It's apparently the duty of the responsible person to take care of their dependents. And I remember when we were laughing at college, when some professor, well-known, he wrote a book, there was some article, we were actually laughing and say it was titled, "No Pleasure Without Responsibility." That when you sire a child with a person, you've got a duty to support that. So if there's abuse in that area of deprivation of amenities of life, your spouse has a duty to maintain you within the means, and also it's the duty of parents to provide for their children. If they don't, you can actually activate the provisions of the law. I've also come up with what I have called the challenges in implementation of the law in the area of abuse. Number one, the greatest challenge is ignorance. Like I said, ignorance of the law is not defense. We actually appreciate and acknowledge the good work which Shamwarewanas are doing, all those organizations. I think we have seen what they are doing. This is part of awareness campaigns and education. I think education is power. Education is power. So the fight against ignorance, let it continue. Then silence or fear of victimization, intimidation, where complainants are threatened. In my practice, in my work in this, my profession, actually, this phrase normally comes where the victim says, why did you not report in time and whatever? He threatened to kill me. He threatened me with what. So the threat aspect is a constant theme with complainants when they come in terms of especially abuse or rape cases. So because they are threatened, they will not disclose the offense to give way for the prosecution of the offenders. And what that means is that silence will be the greatest enemy. Maybe on the silence and fear intimidation of victim of victimization, there was a really one touching incident of a woman. I think I've outlined there, where there was a robbery at a place. The police guys were actually telling me this. I was interested in some of that. That woman, I think she was raped, but he doesn't want to disclose because she wants to protect her marriage. She's only saying these thousands of dollars are the ones which were robbed, but she was actually raped. So you don't underestimate the fear for victimization or the fear to lose your loved one, and also the stigma associated for one being referred as the abused. Then the aspect of poor investigation, I think I've already outlined that about the 20-year-old, I don't know by the end of what, this happened around 2015, whatever. About a week ago, I just came across the state outline. Then I was just saying, oh, this guy, this is what really happened. So poor investigations, the aspect of resource constraints, I don't think I need to really overstate that. We lack the aspect of forensic investigation tools as in other developed countries, where if there is a rape complaint and whatever, they take samples and whatever. We don't have all that. We're still developing and poor in that regard, but I think we need to have resources for us to come to that point where we can have tools for the investigations of crimes. The aspect of corruption, I don't need further elaboration. Whilst I've said that not all cases that where accused persons are acquitted involves corruption, but corruption is a reality. We are human, we succumb to temptation. The aspect of pressure, she has alluded that because of poverty, people end up stealing. That's also a form of stealing because people would want to survive. So there is really corruption. Hands down, I will not say there's no corruption. Okay? In my conclusion, I've looked at that one. I think I've done my marathon here. Maybe before I give room for questions. Okay, let me just have some commentaries. Like I say, I'll be really complimentary to what my sister has presented here, or issues arising from the presentation by our sister, the aspect of prosecutor being your lawyer, the state lawyer being on your side, and our sister also commented the aspect that whether there is provision for watch in briefs, but where am I driving at? In as much as you are a complainant, if you You have your case being prosecuted at court. You can also hire your lawyer. If you've got your means, his duty is not to obstruct or interfere with any investigations. Otherwise, he would be arrested, but you'll be there just to declare that he has your interest at heart and also assist the prosecutor. Some prosecutors are really kind. Personally, I've done a few watching briefs for clients, and this also will guard against the issue of corruption if there's there, because obviously there are some people, corruption, if they see that they are being monitored, this also can keep sure that justice is done. In your case, I thought it's necessary for me to pass through there as well. Okay. Then she talked also about the issue of drug and substance abuse. That's a form of abuse. And for this, for now, I'll just say, apparently there's provision in law. The Dangerous Drugs Act criminalizes the dealing in drugs and also possession of drugs. And recently, I think around last year or thereabout, I think this issue of drug abuse and everything has been actually topical. I've personally handled some of these drug cases, and it was very difficult to get your client out on bail. The aspect of robbery cases and also the issue of drugs, I'm not so sure why the issue of drugs was being dealt by the anti-corruption court. It was not an anti-corruption thing, but that really shows the seriousness within which the authorities were taking this issue of drugs. So, guys, Mtoriro, as has been said, or Sinonzi, Dombo, and whatever, if you are found by the police, they will really arrest you and you rot in jail. But on this aspect of drug, I'm not a social commentator, but maybe looking ahead, I think we should actually aim more for rehabilitation policies in terms of those people who have abused and affected by drugs. I think a few weeks back, I was handling some matter where this guy is really broken to the extent that he was recommended to go someplace in South Africa where they are kept, I'm not so sure, in a farm or whatever, for recommendation, for rehabilitation. I'm sure the authorities and also the health ministry should come up with a policy in terms of that. That's not my duty, but I'm just passing through and maybe making commentaries on that. At this juncture, I would like to invite maybe questions that arise from my presentation, and if I've got the answer off the cuff, I will give you the answer. If I need to go in deep in the law, I will tell you so. There is a hand there.
Thank you so much, Counsel. So I have a couple of questions. My first question is based on the presentation, and the next question.
Can you come again?
I have a couple of questions for you, sir. The first being based on the presentation, and the second being directed to you personally, albeit on a professional capacity. So my first question is, in its Bill of Rights, the Constitution protects the rights of the child, and it also goes on to provide for the right to religious beliefs. How then do we find common ground when we have some religious beliefs and religious leaders being the one that practice things that infringe on the rights of the child? For example, child marriages, taking into consideration cases like the Anna Machaya case, where you find that it was because of a religious belief that is being constitutionally protected, that a young girl is married as early as 13 years old, and then she later loses her life trying to give birth in a shrine and being deprived of medical help. And then, so that is my first question. So the second question, you are a defense lawyer, sir. I would like to know how you find balance as a defense lawyer and as a spiritual man in this career, it's really hard to find you.
Thank you.
You are presented with cases where you have to defend clients which are innocent until proven guilty, but some of them will come to you in confidence to actually tell you that ndakaparamuswa, but no plan. Where do we draw the line? Where do we put the morals and the business?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's more personal. I'm sure I'll be able to defend myself. I will ask for grace. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe for the first question, are you aware of the Mudzuri case versus Minister of Justice and Legal Parliamentary Affairs? Was that case apparently the constitutional judgment, is it true, of 2015? It actually outlawed child marriages. And as a rider to that, we have got Section 3 of the New Marriages Act, which outlaws child marriages. So those practices which are happening, religious or otherwise, they're actually offending against the law. Somebody should report that. Rights activists and organizations like the rights organization of our sister, like the work they did, abuse of children at Zemadzibaba, what is his name, by the way, it's actually a criminal offense. That would be my first, that would be my answer. I think that disposes your first question. The second issue, which is more personal, I'm sure you are a lawyer, I don't need to be told. You did theories of law, the positivist school theory of law. Law is law, whether it's just or immoral or whatever. What is the case, by the way, which postulates that theory? It's not the ratting gun. What is the case, that one? But I'm stepping my foot on the positivist theory of law. But as lawyers, we are trained, I'm sure you did your ethics. Our duty is not to invent facts, is to arrange facts as presented to the client to the best advantage of the client. Also, you've mentioned about the spiritual men without sounding any blasphemers, but the Lord himself is the greatest advocate. I don't want you to antagonize the legal profession and the law. So basically, the cleaning aspect, apparently, we don't play it as a game, but there are certain rules because the state has to prove its case or beyond a reasonable doubt. If the state has not proven its case anyway, they cannot be rewarded with a conviction because my duty is to defend my client with the rules of the game that are there. As long as we apply the law of the land, we saw as we were registered, I remember it was 27 October 2004, we shall uphold the constitution of the land. Somebody is presumed innocent and you proven guilty. So it's a question of applying the law as it is. Don't invent anything. So we can live happily ever after doing these cases anyway. But in any event, we apply the law as it is. Like, if you read this case, the review judgment concerning the new amendment number 10 of 2023, where the learned judge in that review judgment is saying, because this is a law, whether somebody is a child or whatever, the law is law. It has to be applied as it is. So we lean on the side of the law, as we saw before those judges, to uphold the constitution. So we are actually quite perfect. We are not actually criminals. We actually defend the law of the land. That would be my answer there, speaking for myself. I'm okay. But you know what? Without being offensive or whatever, many people, they will appreciate this aspect of us defending the accused persons. Wait until you are an accused person yourself. I was going to refer to in two unfortunate incidences. Late last year, I've got a daughter who was 15 years. There was the mother. I think there was a conspiracy. They framed up the father about a rape case. I personally handled that case. But it was fiction in court. But they were so determined. And to make matters worse, the mother was handicapped. physically disadvantaged could parade that before the court and when they were testifying. So it's not an issue of looking at the emotions of the accuser. But as a lawyer, I'm sure you've got that training. You don't pass judgment until you hear the side of thought. That detachment aspect, you don't quickly say. That's why I was laughing with my sister there. You know, these people you call abusers, but there's this law, we say presume them innocent until proven guilt. Don't quickly judge them, whatever. Even so, you're being charged of murder. I believe the story he tells me, because if he tells me that I've done it, I have to confess in this court, in my entire practice, there is no criminal who has actually told me that he has done it. So conscience-wise, I'm pushing the agenda of the client. The story he tells me, lest I say something, you ask me, say, whose case are you presenting? Because I really need to understand. You say you did not do it, that's the agenda. So it's really easy. We don't invent defenses. Fair? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Another question to your far right.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and thank you for the knowledge that you have provided. Kuti Dzidze, we really appreciate. So I have a question. My question is in regards to issues kodzero dzevana, the boy child and the girl child. We appreciate kuti vana vasikana, they are being protected, being educated, and we respect and salute that. We have organizations akatonge kunge anagela kodzero dzemwana sikana supporting the girl child, which is something that we really recommend and applaud. But my question to you, say, is in regards to the boy child. Vakomana tiri kudzvanyirirwa. Okay. And say no one is really taking us seriously. I will give you a scenario. I work at an NGO. It's a legal aid clinic, which helps people in general. We have received cases, one in particular in Marondera, where there was a woman who raped 15 young boys. And according to Mtemo Wenyika Wedu, like you have rightfully said in the beginning of your presentation, there is no Mtemo that says a man or a male can be raped. But the person can be found guilty under aggravated indecent assault, right? Fair and fine. But as men, we are being affected in two areas: the social side of life and also the legal side. Where a man cannot be raped. The social side is what they call rape culture, where we then get to say, murume harepwe. Akarepwa, ukataura izvozvo unonzi wakapusa. How can it be that you are raped? So my issue is, so how can we be helped as men? Because if I come to the front, like now, and say, for example, this person was raped or I was raped, because of the social stratification around me, it's negative to an extent where it is very close to impossible for me to come out and put my issue to say I was raped. If I come to the law itself would then say a man cannot be raped. How were you raped? When you did what you did, it means you wanted. But at times I could have not consented to anything. So how can you help us so that we can be free socially to come and address our issues? And as an organ or as the people in law, can you create platforms for us that we can come forward and present our cases? And also, please support us as men or as the young people, because things are happening behind doors and no one is talking about those issues. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think the same issue which my sister attempted to address, I think it's another question which is coming in a new guise, in disguise. I think the same issue. Maybe as she has pointed out that this issue of abuse, we have to adopt a multi-sectoral approach. I have to admit, I am a lawyer myself, but in law is not everything. It's not a panacea, only panacea to this issue of abuse. But there are legal provisions, like there are other issues which are outside the law. The multi-sectoral approach she was advocating for, I'm trying to just summarize. So the problem again stems from culture, as has been highlighted, and it has become common causes. Everyone is agreeing here how we are really cultured as men don't cry. I remember I was talking to my boys, say men don't cry, but that's something that has been really embedded within us as men. So there should be those awareness campaigns, but what was a exercise in my mind is like, we have got our sisters and our mothers championing women's rights against abusers, which can be both men and women. And also I've alluded to the fact that I was really shocked when I was reviewing even the constitution of the land in terms of the Bill of the Right, that I have not seen anywhere it is indicated that men's rights. So I think we start from there. Is there a de facto acknowledgement to the extent that men are the abusers? I have to acknowledge, I'm a man like you, my brothers, that 90% of us were really the abusers. We've looked at the cases which are really there. And maybe the reason why we have got these statistics of more women being abused, we come again to the aspect of how we are cultured, where we don't want to open up. We have got our pride. The fact that men have not come out doesn't mean that there are no abuses going on. So in terms of the constitution, are you guys, do you have Darerewa Rume? What are you doing? Our sisters and mothers, they are doing great. But what are you doing as Warume that has been brought in your consciousness? This thing is keeping on coming. Can you come up with creative and inventive solutions? Awareness alone is not enough. I think there is need for intervention at the police level in terms of maybe amendment of the laws. And when I saw that something was exercised in my mind, can we do an application that, can we lob that we need also something for many years? We have been in the cold rooms and whatever, we've been abusing each other. But there's one thing I wanted to ask for further particulars from you, that many we have been abused. What are you saying? By who? What is the exercise in your mind? Because I don't want this discussion to turn into a sexist discussion, whatever, but I think we are men in the modern world, the chauvinistic and the Stone Age position, that one, we are really cultured men, and also in the house of God, thanks to our Father, we are really modernized and cultured men. We don't beat our wives, we don't claim rights, and the constitution is for us men. We say we have to love them and treat them with nice. They are weaker vessels, depending where you are coming from. But we said you are being afraid. What is the exercise in your mind? Can I have further particulars?
Okay, thank you so much for that. So I'll give you a very short scenario, right? The issue, for example, the issue of consent. I would bet you in this room that women, they might be at a better position of knowing their rights in terms of consent vis-a-vis to men. And to an extent where I'm not against women, but I'm just saying because of that information that they now have about themselves as women, some of them are now using the very same information to use it against the boys. And because that the boy child is not aware, the boy child is not informed, he will fall victim of that information that was supposed to help and guide the girl child. But because this information was given not to the right individual, that person will use it against the boy child.
Okay. That's abuse again of information, abuse of power. Yeah, I take note of that. Okay. Did you also talk of abuse at workplaces? I think she has touched on that one. I was just saying, in terms of the policy she was referring to, like in each and every employment establishment, a setup or industry, they what to call code of conducts. Apparently, there's what to call grievance procedures. If there's sexual harassment, you can actually activate the relevant code. If it has to do with sexual harassment, I think the sisters were talking about that. That's actually an abuse that is not acceptable, but there's a remedy domestically. If there's no, you can activate the provisions of the Criminal Procedure and Evidence Act if it tends to be a criminal offense. At workplaces, I think she talked about sexual harassment, you can activate the grievance procedure and also the law if it's an assault, indecent assault. And she was talking about a case of that director. Apparently, I know that case. I've also handled another case where the law can also be abused. She was an employee. She went to the director's office. She was not happy, and people were queuing. They said they wanted their salary, and she came out there saying, "He has touched me appropriately on my part." I handled that case. It was there sometimes in the newspaper, but we fought that one. It was actually an acquittal because, because she was old, she had motive to lie against him. Ndokugadzira side boss. Have you ever heard about that? No, not all women are malicious, but ndokugadzira size. Pana kambonzo like that. A rape complaint is a very serious offense. And allow me again to address the other aspect, which I believe is very key and critical for a rape complaint to be admissible at law. There are two mainly key issues that has to be satisfied. Once you are abused, you have to make your report voluntarily, without duress and consent. And if you are a rape victim, you are giving your evidence in court. How did this come out? Mama beat me up because I was late from school. Then you disclose. I've done cases where you say, okay, the report was not voluntary. It was coerced. So that requirement has to be satisfied. And secondly, you should report promptly to the first person you come in contact with. There has not to be an inordinate delay. So once you are abused, please quickly report voluntarily and also to the next available person. These issues will come really material when some of us who are coming after you in our defense. We will not be criticizing, but we just want to help the court to reach its proper decision, because the defense lawyers will take advantage of that. I think as the victim, you need to know that I address the boys and also the victim. This is another kind face of the law. There's also that frowning part which I've presented before you.
My question is, as much as you said someone is not guilty until proven, what happens to the victim who then the law doesn't rule in their favor? People like that won't then believe in the law. How do we handle such situations?
Okay, thank you. The law is there to do justice for the parties. If you look maybe as a starting point, section 50 of the Constitution of the land, the actually rights of the accused person is enshrined there. We use that proviso in applying for bail, right to liberty and whatever. And also as the Constitution rightfully depicts that somebody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So the law is there for everyone. The rule of law, she has talked about that concept. Those students of the law, or those who have elementary knowledge of the law, is to apply to anyone in respect of what. So when talk of justice, I'll give you illustration. Justice to the accused person or his mother standing in the court means an acquittal that my child is cleared. So justice means different things to different people. Now for the complainant and her team or her parents, those concerned, just to them, they just want to see somebody goes to jail. But the court takes a different view. A case has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. You hear me? A case that is tried by the court is not the case that happens at the backyard there. But that case that happened at the backyard there, vividly in all its elements, has it been brought before the court? It might have happened out there, but there are so many factors. Poor investigations, there could be poor prosecution or poor presentation skill, or the prosecutor has lost the map, he has been defeated, and the evidence does not prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And in those situations, the court is entitled to acquit. I'm sure I have heard about the famous O.J. Simpson case. If it doesn't fit, you just have to acquit. If the evidence doesn't fit the requirements of the crime, you just have to acquit. I have had situations where the accused person is acquitted. You've done good job as it is. The measures of it, no. In as much as I've committed you, I have to switch off this recording aspect. But what you did was not good. Please don't go and do it again. But the law, I'm acquitting you because mathematically applying the law it is. There's no basis for me to acquit you. It doesn't mean that it did not happen, but it only means that this case has not been presented well before the court. So the case that is judged upon is the case that is presented before the court. A lot of things happen there. I was not there. If my client is acquitted, he was not there on the night of 23 October at a bar when the brawl happens. But I'm listening what happens. But this allegation is the state managed to prove a case. So in terms of the victims, what happened to them, like I said, that incident, it's really painful, it's traumatic. Maybe they have to seek social counseling. That's why this organization, Shamariawanascan and whatever, I'm sure they offer counseling services all the way. My sister, we've lost the battle here or things did not go well. I'm sure it doesn't end there. They have got support networks that are doing something. Organizations like hers, you have to fall for that. When the legal remedies fail, like I said, law alone, you cannot fight this, but there are other remedies anyway. So if the law fails you, that's not the end of the road, my sister. You have to go to other remedies. Did I answer you, sister? Thank you. She said this. Thank you for that encouragement. Timekeeper, I'm not so sure if I still have more cases to defend here. Thank you.